Welcome to the IGEOS show, where we help grow the passion for an extraordinary workplace. If you're listening to or watching this, we hope to strengthen your passion for a workplace that has the potential not only to have an extraordinary impact on your life, but also on the world. My name is Amit Riker, and my co-hosts are Valerio Pascotto and Timothy Galway. Now to you, Valerio.
Thank you, Amit. What drives our efforts is really a vision and credo to enrich humaneness in the workplace. For that, we interview thought leaders who have been inspired by values of compassion, empathy, and modeling to share their discoveries, challenges, and successes. Really, there is no time like now to change the tide, from hateful divisiveness to seeking similarities, from the myth of the genius to the wisdom of humankind, and from the fears of the primitive brain to the wonder of generosity and warmth.
To support you in this work of creating extraordinary workplaces, we would like to offer you a free worksheet you can download on the 5 disciplines of a high-performance team. Just go to IGEOS.net to download the sheet and learn more about us. And now, on to our guest for today. Welcome, welcome, conscious leaders and conscious teams. We have a lovely guest with us today, Anna McGrath, who I had the good fortune to meet through the Conscious Capitalism community. And we're going to have a really great conversation with her today and the book that she was a co-author with. So to kick it off, Anna McGrath has supported organizations globally to build response agility into their cultures and transition into self-organizing structures. She has worked with the full continuum of organizations, from traditional hierarchies to bleeding edge startups, and is a popular speaker on Holacracy, transformation, and whole body wisdom practices. After 14 years of incubation and experimentation, her company WonderWorks Consulting was acquired by Godfrey Dadich Partners, where Anna is currently partner, culture, and transformation. So Anna, such a pleasure to have you today.
Great, thank you, Ahmed. It's an absolute pleasure to get a chance to connect with you further.
It's a fascinating story for me because, just like you said, you know, this community is such a great connected community. I actually got in contact through LinkedIn through one of your other co-authors and met. We actually didn't end up meeting in person, but we were exchanging contact at the WorkHuman conference, and then full circle, meeting you through the Conscious Capitalism community and seeing that you were also a contributor to the book was a very fascinating full circle.
Yeah, definitely a small world.
So just for our audience, the book is From Hierarchy to High Performance, Unleashing the Hidden Superpowers of Ordinary People to Realize Extraordinary Results. So here's the Kindle version, really fascinating book with a number of really fantastic authors there. So Anna, could you just kick us off and tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to contribute and write a chapter in this book?
Yeah, so I had, over the years, I'd worked in a couple of different industries. I had been in banking and also in sports management, so very different environments, and really got fascinated about culture over the years because you could just see organizations thrive or teams thrive. You know, you could have the whole organization thriving, you could have just one team within an organization. And I could see how certain behaviors really impacted an organization and individuals' lives so intensely. So I've done lots of different things, and I met Joan Blades back in, I think it was 2012 or 2013, and she was gathering some people together to create an organization called Great Work Cultures. And that's basically where I met all of my collaborators in this book. So we've, over the last few years, done different things to really, create more and more of a ripple to create the cultures that we want to see in the world in organizations.
Oh, that's fantastic. I remember talking to you briefly at the Conscious Capitalism event, where you told me a little bit about your journey, and you speak about it in your chapter as well, about how you had written an original version, and then something about it just wasn't landing for you, and you had that switch. So could you tell us a little bit about that journey, and then maybe if that leads into some of the concepts that you bring out in your chapter as well? Would love to hear about that.
Yeah, that's great. So I studied with the Hendricks Institute for about the last 15 or so years, and they really are, they really focus on whole body wisdom, and great people, Gay and Katie Hendricks. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is about congruence. That your insides are matching your outsides, that your words match what your behaviors. And so as I had been asked to write a specific chapter for the book, and my good kind of scout dib dib dob dob, I followed my instructions, and I was passionate about self-organizing. So I crafted the chapter primarily around that. And then I had this moment when I woke up, and I'd written the chapter, it was finalized, it had gone through all the different stages, and I was sending it, and I had this whole body experience to say, if this was the last thing you were ever going to write, is this what you would write about? Like, is this only what you would share? And I just got really clear in that moment that the work around whole body wisdom was the primary, because if you're in a self-organizing system but you don't have your own inner wisdom, you can't function well within a self-organizing environment. So I kind of turned it on its head and immediately said, that's what I want to write about. And so now all of a sudden that created all sorts of other whole body reactions inside of me, and responses as well. So I decided that if there's one thing that I know is true, is to follow your own full body yes, to really be congruent with what you most want, and that will then serve the greater community. So you said, what's one of the things? Whole body yes. And to me, a whole body yes is when your head, your heart, and your gut, they all line up and you get really clear on the direction to take.
I love that. This has definitely been part of my journey of going through just my own personal development, and then as it extends out into the professional world. And one of the things I always find fascinating is, especially in the Western world, there's very much, a very heavy importance on the analytical and thinking and whatnot, and will tend to ignore, as you say, the full body wisdom. So for those that either may not be familiar with it, how would you explain it, what full body wisdom is? You sort of mentioned it, but explain a little bit more of what does it mean to be tapping into that, or sort of paying attention to, even if it might feel a little woo-woo.
Yeah, well, I totally am happy for whatever somebody's experiencing. So to me, being what I would say, you can really lead your life in a very head-centric way. And that means whatever thoughts, whatever concepts, whatever ideas that are coming into your head, that is your primary kind of driver and leader. And I think we all are very much aware of that. Right. We know our inner thoughts that are constantly saying to do this or that, or what direction to go in. When you take a moment to get more quiet, to really drop down, and the way I like to look at it is go more to the sensation level. Like, what literally are the bits doing inside of your body? So you don't go and take all your brilliant concepts around feelings and put them into your body. You really go to that sensation level and notice, wow, like, what's happening in my jaw area, my throat area, my belly area. Have I got sensations running out through my arms? So rather than labeling it at first, literally take a moment, like right now, take a few moments, a few belly breaths, and just notice what's happening. So for me, I notice, immediately I notice kind of sensation kind of running along kind of my cheeks there under my eyes. And I have thought of, it'd be really great to take a drink right now. And that thought was propelled by, I could feel the dryness of my tongue. So to me, so often I can, and I think we can, is we get heads down, we start doing work, and it's so easy to ignore our bodies, ignore what our bodies are saying. And so whole body wisdom is really getting to know what the messages are. Dry mouth, drink water, that makes sense. But kind of the kind of whirly swirly experience that you might have coming up in your body, what's that message? What's it telling us? So I look at organizations, got a number of organizations that say they're very data driven, and that's brilliant. I really honor that, because data is it's sending us messages all day long to say, pay attention to this. And our bodies are doing the same. They are sending little data packets. And the question is, are we listening? So data-driven organizations, they're looking at the head data, but are they looking at the whole body data?
I love that. A lot of anyone that has practiced or been involved with meditation or mindfulness definitely can identify this and notice maybe the notion of, oh, that gut feeling, you're in a meeting, you decide to go in a certain strategic direction, everyone agrees, but something like, it makes sense up here, it makes sense on paper, it looks good, the numbers line up, but something still just doesn't feel aligned. And then many times, how can you trust that? And then how can you then lean into what's that showing up for you? So Anna, do you have a surprising story, or besides the one that you outlined, that created this chapter, of either yourself or people you've worked with, where there's been this sort of shift of people were going, trucking along in their heads, and then once they connected, there was some other deeper insight that they wouldn't have noticed if they just kept with the data analytic, head-driven data?
I work with a lot of teams, but specifically I'm going to share an individual story. And it was somebody who was really looking at what their next move was. They're in an organization that had been enormously successful in what they were doing. But the question was, they had a number of different options. There were 3 specific options on the table. And the head was telling them that the offer, the X number of $1 million offer that was being put forward by one very large organization seemed to make total sense, and depending on who they spoke to, when they spoke to people that were very head-centric, they were like, how could you even consider any other option? It's obviously that one, take that option. And one of the other options was one that gave somebody a lot more freedom, a lot more opportunity for creativity. And so that, the creative community, the whole body wisdom community, why would you sell out? And, you want to really make sure that you go in the direction of something that really resonates head, heart, and gut. And those kind of decisions are not simple. And there are decisions that you really want to explore all options, because you want to make sure that you're not just thinking that the money option is obviously just a head example, because it wasn't. There were all sorts of opportunities baked inside of that opportunity that could have given creative freedom potentially. But the process of I remember the inner angst process of, where do I want to go? How do I make this decision? And once you literally give your head the opportunity to weigh something up and kind of give all your answers on your heart, what are you feeling? What is the actual feeling, emotional component to this decision? And now, what does your gut tell you? What is there a kind of enormous fear with any of these options? Is there enormous excitement that's coming from any of these options? And even if there's fear coming up, what Fritz Perls said many years ago is, fear is excitement without the breath. So again, it's not like just click your fingers and make the decision. It's really about weighing something cognitively and weighing it in a whole body sense. So to me, that's kind of a story that repeats each and every day with people I work with, because they've all got decisions to make. And maybe there's lots of doors, maybe there's a few doors, but how do you determine that? And I found over the years that when people only go through their head option, there's a big impact down the road.
Wow.
A big negative impact, maybe is, yeah.
So how would you say that if people aren't used to cultivating or paying attention to this, how can they start paying attention to in the moment of a very high tense meeting, high stakes, high tense, or maybe a long-term strategic decision or action that they need to take? How can we as leaders, we as teams, start to pay attention to that so we know how to best move forward?
Yeah, the thing I look at is it's like practicing with small. So if you need to make a decision in the next hour, it's going to be pretty challenging to get that practice. But it's practicing with the small. So actually, you showed the book, and my eyes just kind of descended on it, and I was thinking about getting 7 people to agree on a cover. That's kind of that's what popped in my head. And so as I look at the colors, and as I think about maybe this most simple practice, every day when you get up in the morning, you make a decision about what are you going to eat. And so as you open the fridge, do you open the fridge or wherever you have got your food stored? And are you making a decision based on, oh, well, I always have cereal, I always have porridge, I always have yogurt? Or are you actually tuning into, where do you notice your yes signal and where do you notice your no signal? So I like people to practice in different ways. Sometimes, what are you going to wear? What are you going to eat? What are you choosing to do this weekend? All these kind of basic decisions that we make, sometimes on autopilot, where we're not really going, okay, so is there a sensation in a part of my body that I can call my whole body yes? Because for me, there's kind of a whoosh upwards and a kind of narrowing of my focus, like there's just such clarity. But everybody needs to build their own body map. So as I look at that beautiful image on the wall behind you, I'm imagining that is really a full body yes for you. And so again, look around you, look at your office, look at your computer, look at whatever environment you work in. Are you surrounding yourself with whole body yeses? And I think whole body no's are very easy to recognize. Our bodies are very, my body is extremely intense when there's a no. But that's where I would start practicing, is with small and large decisions, but start with small.
I love that. It reminds me of a similar conversation I was having with a client of, if there's a particular skill we're looking to build, whatever it might be, the first time we do it, it's not with the $1 million contract decision. You have to be able to have that skill built up so that when you are coming to the harder decisions and bigger actions, that you've sort of built essentially that muscle. Mm-hmm. And so I love that. What would you say to people who would say, well, Anna, aren't there still some things that you just have to do? You just have to suck it up and do it. You know, your body's going to say, no, I hate this, but it needs to be done. You've got a responsibility to X, Y, and Z. How would you respond to that? Or what comes up with that?
Well, a lot of things. So one is, the minute you said one of my trigger words, which is have to.
Have to.
I think of should, must, and have to.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it, because that's what people do say. Surely you have to. You must. You should. You've been hired to fill in the blank.
Right.
So when I think about have to, I think of what first comes up is at the effect of. Like when I have to do something, I'm at the effect of something outside of me having to do this thing. And have to is what I would call a reactionary response. So reactionary versus responsive. You can respond from consciousness, you can react from kind of our unconscious patterns. And so the first thing, whenever I say should, must, or have to, it's kind of what I love about it. It's like this wake up bell. It's like, whoa, okay, I'm in reaction mode. I'm in my dinosaur brain. I'm not in my kind of healthy responsibility mode. So firstly, I would look at that. And then if it's something that I have agreed to do, or I might not enjoy doing it, but it's something that I think is really required, is essential for the work that I want to do, or, my purpose in life, or to, as I say, to fulfill an agreement or a commitment. Now I go, do you choose to? Are you choosing actively to do this? Not from a place of victimhood, not from a place of hero, from a place of, actually, I choose to keep my agreement. And now the energy of when I do that thing is totally different. There's none of that kind of energy. It's like, oh, I've made a choice. And that to me is the shift. It might only take 15 seconds to go through that process. It might take 15 hours if it was enormously, I don't know, it might take longer, but that 15-second shift of I choose, all of a sudden, everything's different.
I love that example. Such a subtle thing that is all going on behind the scenes, but when that shift happens, or when you're able to make that shift, the energy, or just your own sort of mental, emotional energy, how much that really shifts. So yeah. I love that. You mentioned in there the word response, and then how do you respond? So, and you have this concept you talk about response agility. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think there are two places that you can be, two energies that you could be inhabiting. One is response agility, which is when, some people might call it in the zone, some, peak performance, presence, basically. When you're present, you're engaged, you're doing the thing you love to do. And we kind of are responding in this very agile way. It doesn't matter what presents itself. You go, oh, okay, no problem. And you're kind of very agile, moving around and getting what you need done. So to me, that's this place of presence and healthy responsibility. Response agility is, I think, more so that when something really challenging gets thrown at you. And when people initially have something very challenging thrown at them, or, I say thrown at them, something happens basically. And then a lot of people will descend into the triangle, the drama triangle, where you're coming from this hero energy, how can I save the day, coming from villain energy, who's to blame, or coming from this victim energy of poor me, I'm at the effect of. So to me, in all of those three places, none of them are a problem. The only question is, can you recognize it and can you be agile in shifting, in choosing to, again, go into responsive mode? So when I say response agility, it's being able to be with whatever is presented in front of you. From the most challenging things when just recently, somebody I know found out after 14 years of being cancer-free that they actually have got cancer back. And that is just such an enormous experience. And I remember the day, it was just a few days ago, they shared it, and I could see that they were being really courageous, and they were telling their kids, and they were doing all the things they needed to do. So they were responding in an agile way. They were not sitting, feeling a victim of it. They were, they were having moments of that. But they were breathing into it and going, what do I most want? And what do I choose to do? And then taking action and doing that. So to me, that is the most pristine example of response agility. Because many people will descend into a very reactionary mode. I don't judge them for that, in all honesty. Everyone gets to go into reactionary mode. But to me, that skill, you talked about practicing skills. When you've practiced a skill over months, weeks, and years, so that when the toughest stuff comes, that you can truly look at it, breathe with it, feel whatever you're going to feel, and then continue to feel as you respond. So that would be my definition of response agility.
I love it. And thank you for sharing that story where the whole idea is to be able to respond in the best sort of healthy, meaningful way possible when there are circumstances that you can't possibly expect or that are very, very challenging.
Mm. And I want to say something else, Pop, as you were saying that. Please. I think when I think about feedback, like so many people are petrified of feedback. And I think it's a great example of where people are willing to respond with agility or not. Or willing to put all the defenses, like, ooh, like the feedback is going to literally kill them in some way. And to me, there's life and death, there really is life and death. And then there's someone having the courage to give somebody else feedback, whether it's feedback appreciation or whether it's constructive feedback for, growth. And just being able to, the skill of being able to be with that, listen and take it in, and then do something with it. I don't know, when I think of all of the work that I do, I don't know, I've got to the stage where I really believe, I do know, it's a lie, but I don't know. I really believe that skill is one of the primary ones for everyone at every level of an organization. And it is the one that I have just such love for those that are willing to truly be open to feedback, to go away, to digest, and then come back and take action. So that to me is kind of the number one space of response agility in the workplace that I think all of us can put focus on.
Wow, I love it. I love it. Thank you, Anna. As we're wrapping up our time here, and I wish we could keep going on and on. I always love these types of conversations. What are some final thoughts that you'd like to leave with the audience with either the work that you're doing or anything extended beyond that?
Yeah, so I think I don't know, to me, the work that I'm doing is really about getting people to love themselves when they go into dinosaur mode. Like I like to say, don't punch the dinosaur, because we're all dinosaurs. You know, we all have that reactionary aspect to us at times. Some people have practiced a lot and it shows up a lot less. So I think the piece that I would say is really loving yourself no matter what is coming up. And that, I think the final thing I would leave you with, or leave everyone with, is I really like this as a concept of what I call donut peeps. So I love the idea of a donut, yes, more like not the most healthy image, but there's something friendly about it, that's not scary about a donut. And it's a kind of combination of, if you think about bowling and you think about the runners that they put in the alleys for kids so that their ball doesn't become a gutter ball. So I think about that runner. If you make it a circle, it makes a donut. And I think every single person on the planet needs to surround themselves with, say, 3, 4, 6, or many people who are their donut peeps. The people that when they get off track, they can easily bump them back on course because they know what their purpose is, they know they're good people, and that they are willing to be there as their donut peep. So that to me is, I think, one of the images I would love to leave you with.
I love that so much, Anna, because I'm just thinking, my wife listening to this, she knows I have such the sweet tooth, and she's like, oh, Amit, you would imagine a donut in your donut peeps. Yes, absolutely. She is definitely one of my donut peeps, and I love the imagery, and the fact that it's so out there, but the essence around it makes so much sense, and the fact that you have to rely on, there are times when you may go to a dark place or a hurt place, and it's hard. Yes, sometimes we have to come up by ourselves, but we're social beings. We're not intended to do that, and so this concept of your donut peeps, of these this energy of people around you, I love that concept. So, Anna, thank you so much for your time today. If people wanted to learn more about you or your work, or definitely the book, where could they go?
So Godfrey Dadich .com is one place they can go, and Google Anna McGrath. It will pop up, and you will see a bright smiling face. And I really appreciate, Amit, you inviting me to this interview, and I definitely now count you as one of my donut peeps.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time, and everybody check out, we'll have the links, and we'll have the link to the book. So definitely check out the book, check out Anna, and thank you for joining us today. So my name is Amit Riker. This is the IGEOS show, and we look forward to continuing these conversations with people really making contributions to the world, making contributions to creating extraordinary workplaces. So look forward to chatting with you next time. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We have many more exciting thought leaders to come on this show. If you enjoyed this interview, please click the like button and also subscribe so that you can stay tuned to learn from other powerful thought leaders in future shows. We would also appreciate your comments and feedback on the show, as well as who else you would like to hear from. And don't forget to visit our site, IGEOS.net, to download the free worksheet on the 5 disciplines of a high-performance team. See you next time.